Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. Have you ever considered how the battle for political influence can spill into the halls of academia, fundamentally altering not just student life, but also groundbreaking research that, well, benefits us all? Today, we're going to examine a really compelling situation brought to light by The Economist. It focuses on the Trump administration's actions against America's public universities, specifically UCLA. And this isn't just about a single headline, It's a story that weaves together civil rights, multi-billion-dollar research grants, and, frankly, the very autonomy of our educational institutions. Our mission today is to look beyond those initial reports, maybe challenge some of the assumptions, and draw an additional context to give you a truly nuanced understanding of what's genuinely at stake here. So, The Economist really sets the scene for us. It paints this picture of UCLA's campus in the quiet, fading weeks of summer. You can almost imagine it, right? Students, backpacks, banners proudly declaring UCLA the country's #1 public university. But beneath that surface, that academic calm, there was apparently this palpable sense of unease.
A deep uncertainty about what was coming. And what makes this situation particularly acute is that back in July, the Department of Justice, the DOJ, alleged UCLA was deliberately indifferent to anti-Semitic harassment. This is about Jewish and Israeli students during a protest encampment. Now, that's a significant charge. It falls under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act.
Right, which prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in any program getting federal funds.
Exactly. And anti-Semitism in this context is treated as discrimination based on shared ancestry, ethnicity. And then came the move that really grabbed headlines.
Right.
The Trump administration froze a huge amount of money, $584 million in critical research grants.
Wow. And that's NSF and NIH money.
Yes, National Science Foundation and National Institutes of Health.
Yeah.
This isn't trivial funding. It supports vital studies. Think Alzheimer's, opioid addiction, that kind of thing. Now, to get these absolutely crucial funds released, the administration is reportedly asking for, well, $1 billion.
$1 billion with a B.
Yep, which, just for perspective, is around 9% of UCLA's entire annual budget.
That's staggering.
And the demands didn't stop there. They also included a ban on overnight protests and a whole host of other changes aimed squarely at rooting out diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, DEI.
Ah, the DEI connection.
Which the administration has broadly framed as divisive or, unnecessary. This whole approach was so aggressive that a former provost from the University of San Francisco actually called it extortion.
Extortion. That's strong.
It is. And The Economist frames this whole situation as a new stage, maybe a more escalatory phase, in the administration's strategy toward universities.
Moving beyond the Ivy Leagues.
Exactly. They suggest it's moving beyond just targeting those elite private institutions like Harvard or Columbia to now focus on public ones, especially in what the article termed enemy territory. So Democrat-run states. And this focus on public universities is precisely why The Economist sees this as such a distinct and potentially more impactful strategy.
Because they reach so many more students.
That's a huge part of it. These institutions aren't just a few wealthy private schools. They are, in many ways, the engine of America's social mobility. They educate nearly 3/4 of our college students. And they're powerhouses for research. Just look at the numbers. 7 of the top 10 universities getting NSF grant funding are public.
Huh. I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, and 3 of those are just within the UC system itself. UCLA ranks 7th nationally. That's ahead of Harvard at 15th, and Columbia at 19th for NSF funds.
Okay, so the implication is clear.
Right. The insight here is disrupting these universities isn't just a blow to one campus. It's a strategic strike at the foundations of American innovation and opportunity.
The potential impact, if those freezes hold, would be incredibly far-reaching, affecting countless students, faculty, vital research.
That enemy territory thesis from The Economist definitely provides a compelling frame. It highlights a pattern, right?
It does seem to fit a narrative.
But as we often find when we dig a bit deeper, the full picture is rarely quite so neat. There are layers here, complexities, and some pretty crucial legal tripwires we need to explore.
Yeah, I think it's really important to start by acknowledging that the legal hook the administration used, well, it's real. The DOJ did actually document Title VI failures at UCLA. There were issues. And separately, UCLA had already reached a settlement with Jewish plaintiffs about similar concerns. So this isn't something just invented out of thin air for political reasons. There were documented problems regarding student safety and non-discrimination that, needed addressing. But, and this is the key part, The administration appears to be blending these legitimate civil rights findings with what you could call maybe extraneous policy extraction.
Extraneous meaning?
Meaning things that go beyond fixing the specific Title VI problem. We're talking about sweeping anti-DEI terms across the board and these, frankly, enormous billion-dollar financial demands. That really goes far beyond normal Title VI practice. The usual remedies are much more targeted, much more specific to the actual discrimination found.
Right. So the accusation is essentially that they're taking a legitimate concern and using it as a lever, almost, for a much broader ideological push.
That's how it looks to many observers, yes.
And are the courts seeing it that way? Are they pushing back?
Absolutely. This blend, this mix of legitimate enforcement with broader policy goals, it's already being challenged pretty effectively, too. We've seen a federal judge order the NSF, the National Science Foundation, to reinstate suspended UCLA awards.
Already? On what grounds?
The judge found the agency's justifications, which were apparently quite boilerplate unlawful under the Administrative Procedure Act, the APA.
The APA, so procedural fairness.
Basically, yes. It mandates that federal agencies follow fair procedures and give clear, reasoned explanations for their actions. The judge felt the NSF hadn't adequately justified the freeze in this case.
Okay, that's significant.
Very. And there's a separate NIH hearing set for mid-September. That's going to be a really key barometer, I think, for whether these broad grant suspensions can survive similar APA scrutiny. It really raises the question, how far can the administration push before hitting constitutional limits?
Like the spending clause.
Exactly, like the spending clause, which limits how federal money can be used to influence state policy. Or even anti-coercion doctrines preventing the federal government from, strong-arming states. These could draw a line. And this tension between extortion versus remedy really highlights the whole problem.
How so?
Well, normal remedies for Title VI violations are usually things like develop a specific safety plan, set clear protest rules that comply with the law but protect free speech, implement monitoring, provide specific training to fix the discrimination issue.
Targeted actions.
Precisely. Billion-dollar settlements and demands for broad ideological purges. That's just not standard practice. And judges are already noting the huge collateral damage these freezes cause. You mentioned the Alzheimer's and cancer studies. That research is vital, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the campus protests that triggered the Title VI complaint.
It does seem incredibly disproportionate when you put it like that.
It really does, and look at the precedents. Columbia reportedly paid over $200 million in its settlement. That's a lot of money, no question.
Still a fraction of $1 billion, though.
Exactly. And Brown University settled for an even narrower agreement. It focused more on specific monitoring, adjustments to protest policies, not sweeping ideological changes. These examples strongly suggest the negotiable core for fixing Title VI issues is much more limited. It's about targeted remedial actions. It makes the administration's broader demands at UCLA look less like a standard settlement negotiation and, well, more like an overreach trying to force unrelated policy changes.
That's a really powerful point.
Yeah.
It suggests the administration isn't operating in a vacuum. There are real checks. And it definitely moves us beyond just the economist's initial frame of a simple political shakedown.
So if the courts are pushing back, what other forces are complicating this? Are we seeing pushback from unexpected places, or are universities showing more resilience than expected? Definitely. If we connect this to the bigger political picture, you actually see some surprising friction within the GOP. It's not a totally unified front. A pretty significant group of Republican senators, led by Katie Britt from Alabama, actually pressed the White House Budget Office, the OMB, to release NIH funds.
Republican senators pushing back on this.
Yes, it highlights that this kind of scorched earth tactic with research money isn't universally popular even within the party, especially when it hits labs back home or research tied to popular initiatives like Make America Healthy Again, which often targets cancer and chronic diseases.
So local impact matters.
It seems so. This kind of pressure apparently even chastened the administration before, leading them to unfreeze about $15 billion for Alabama and other universities. It shows there are political limits, especially when it affects constituents directly.
And it's not just friction in D.C., right? Public universities, particularly in big states like California, they aren't just sitting ducks either.
No, they have resources.
California, for instance, has the ability, both politically and fiscally, to potentially backfill some federal funding gaps. Plus, new polling shows really broad bipartisan support among voters there for the UC system's research mission. Something like 58% of Californians actually support increasing state funding.
That's significant public backing.
And Governor Gavin Newsom's reaction was pretty characteristic. Will sue.
Yeah.
It signals a strong, maybe more confrontational stance than some private universities have taken.
Right. That state-level resilience definitely undercuts some of the federal government's leverage. It suggests these universities might not be quite as vulnerable as a huge federal freeze might initially make them seem. And the universities themselves are responding in different ways. It's quite strategic, actually. UCLA, as we mentioned, had already taken steps before the DOJ announcement. They banned encampments, got rid of diversity statements in hiring, even settled that lawsuit with Jewish students.
Kind of preemptive action.
One faculty member called it anticipatory obedience. Yeah, trying to head off conflict. Then you have others, like the University of Washington, reportedly aiming to just be pragmatic. Keep quiet, comply where needed, don't make big waves.
Play low.
Sort of. And then look at Miami-Dade College, the country's biggest community college. Its president basically said, our students aren't protesting on the grass, they're focused on jobs, implying they're already aligned with what the administration seems to value career prep.
Interesting contrast.
And Ohio State, the VP's alma mater, lost some funds, but not enough to cause major disruption. They shut down pro-Palestinian encampments very quickly and promised to get it right. Seemed to earn them some breathing room. But this all raises a really important question for the long term. What's the biggest risk here?
Beyond the immediate money.
Yeah. It's not just these freezes, damaging as they are. It's the potential for weaponizing program-neutral research dollars. Using money meant for science to fight these viewpoint battles or push broader ideological agendas, that invites what some call durable institutional rewiring, meaning labs might relocate if funding feels unstable, hiring stalls because top researchers fear political interference. States might start building their own separate funding systems as backstops. You risk balkanizing U.S. research, splitting it up.
Wow. That phrase, balkanizing U.S. research, really captures the long-term threat, doesn't it? It suggests a future where science isn't driven by unified national goals, but it's fragmented by politics, by state funding fights. That could seriously undermine America's global leadership in research.
It absolutely could undermine our ability to tackle the big challenges. The maybe slightly positive news here is that the courts, as we saw with the NSF ruling, are already starting to narrow the administration's room to maneuver. They're applying checks. So the critical choice for universities going forward will likely be, do they settle for targeted remedial oversight, which seems more legally sound and in line with traditional Title VI practice?
Which seems more likely.
I think so. Or do they accept these broader ideological conditions, which seems unlikely to hold up on appeal anyway? So while The Economist is right that public universities are a key battleground, this whole shakedown approach has significant legal and political tripwires. The more the White House pushes these sweeping culture war demands or these mega fines alongside legitimate civil rights enforcement.
More pushback they invite.
Exactly. More court injunctions, more backlash from their own allies in Congress, more states stepping up with counterfunding. It ultimately dilutes their leverage. And ironically, it might even leave the actual problem, the anti-Semitism that triggered the Title VI investigation, kind of left on the table, not addressed in the most effective, targeted way.
So as we've seen, this battle over federal research funding, it's clearly far more than just a fiscal dispute. It really is a fight over the autonomy of our educational institutions, the future of essential research, and ultimately the very way knowledge is pursued and shared in this country. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What do these events tell us about the future integrity and independence of academic research in such a politically charged landscape? And what role will states, and indeed the courts, play in safeguarding it moving forward? Thanks for listening. Follow us to stay updated with the latest insights on The Economist every day. And don't forget to like, comment, and share.